Hey guys, and welcome back to NoBlandMakeup, where we do makeup and body paint tutorials, usually with a cosplay twist, and today there is no twist. This is literally just a straight up cosplay of Casca using body paint. This is the second tutorial I've done based on Berserk. I will have the first video I did linked up above, but first, I have a shop on Teespring, so if you guys want to get cool new NoBlandMakeup merch, I'll be adding some stuff as time goes by, but if you guys want to support the channel, I'll have the link to that down below. But back to what you guys were actually here for. So since I did the original Guts video in black and white, I decided that I was going to do the Casca video in black and white, and eventually I'm going to do Griffith as well. If you guys haven't seen Berserk, I will warn you that it's pretty good, but it gets really, really dark at the end, so if that's not really your thing, I would probably skip this one. But as for Casca, she is darker skinned. The show is set kind of like in Europe, as far as like some of the things that are going on, some of the weapons that they use, the characters that they have that aren't part of their group. So it seems like everything's set in Europe. I went on Reddit and a few other places to try to figure out exactly where Casca is from, because it doesn't actually say it in the anime or the manga, I believe. So there are theories that she could be Arab, she could be black, she could be from Spain or Italy. Nobody really knows. So I decided to use, since she does have a deeper skin tone, I decided to use a gray body paint. And I'm going to apply that all over the face. I started off with a brush, but it was applying a little bit patchy. So I did switch to a sponge, and I did that around my face and neck, and I also tried my best to cover my piercing, but I can't make that disappear. Until my piercing heals, it ain't going anywhere, so oh boy. Now, I powdered my face for two reasons. One, because I didn't want to wait for this to dry, and two, because it was way too shiny. But in all seriousness, I did that for those reasons, but also because I'm going to be applying some powders to give dimension to my face. Tried to do this video before, and not only did a bunch of clips mysteriously disappear, but my face also wasn't looking as much like hers, and I wanted to change that the second time around. Now, speaking of face, I did overdo her eyebrows just a little bit. Hers are a bit thinner than mine. I kind of messed that up. But I did go back over with a little bit of gray body paint, just in the spots where it was a little much. I didn't want to draw in just a line like I do with some of my other comic kind of tutorials, just because she had eyebrows, not just a line. And like I said, if you wind up messing that up a little bit, you can always go over with a little bit of gray body paint, kind of as an eraser sort of, or you can just wipe it off and start all over. Casca doesn't have super like defined cheekbones. She has a little bit of definition to them, but really what's defined on her face is her jawline. She has a very strong jaw, so I went ahead and contoured a little bit just under my cheekbones, mostly for my own vanity, but then I really focused on the jawline and really making that stand out, because like I said, she does have a pretty strong jaw. And this is also why I went in with a little bit of powder after I did the body paint, just because I didn't want the powders to stick so much to the paint, basically. Next, I took a little bit of white eyeshadow and used that as a highlight. I didn't go too extreme because, like I said, this is just me making a very serious attempt at changing my face so I can be somebody else for a little bit. But anything that you have contoured, you want to put a little bit of a highlight on the other side of it, just so that it balances it out. and kind of makes it look a little more realistic. Since Casca has more almond-shaped eyes, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a wing, not so much like winged eyeliner. Oh my god, look at me. This is gonna be more to elongate my eye shape just a little bit, and because eventually I'm gonna have to outline my eye anyway, because I am gonna be a manga character this time. So I figured, let me do something that kind of will help me look more like the person. So I did more of a flick at the end, and then on the inside corner I did bring in my eyeliner a little bit, again to give me more of that almond shape. And then I went over my waterline. Again, this was more because I had to do an outline anyway, with some cream eyeliner, and this kind of gave me the shape that I was looking for. I know, today I sound so sure of myself. Now I took some eyeliner and I drew on little eyelashes just on the bottom lash line, because she does have them. And with this I just used a liquid liner. Then I started drawing some of the detail lines around her face, so like the crease of her eyelid or the shadow that she has right by her nose, things like that, just to give her face dimension and to kind of start bringing that part together, so that way I can move on to the body part.
In this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? In this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law?
So for this part, I did the easier of the two ways that you can do this. You could do this part by part, so start by drawing out the cape, doing all the sketch lines and everything, moving on to the armor, whatever. I started doing that, and then I realized there is an easier way to do this, since it's mostly going to be black and white from here on out. I decided that I'm just gonna paint everything white and then go in and do all the detail work afterwards. That would be the easier way to do this. I also switched from using a brush to a sponge, since like I said, I'm just gonna be applying white for right now and then doing all the details in black. Either way you do it, it's up to you. The outcome is hopefully still gonna be the same. I'm trying this year to make my life a little bit easier by like doing the logical steps when it comes to body painting. So far I'm doing a decent job, but we'll see. Also, another thing that I'm also trying to do this year is to wait until things are completely dry before moving on to the next step. So what I wound up doing is that I did everything on one side of my body first, let it dry, and then I started painting on the other side. This will make it easier because things won't smudge so much. Mostly it's for that. It does take a little bit longer, but at the end of the day it's a little bit less of a headache. For me anyway. Like I said, as long as the outcome is the same, it's all good. Yeah, so remember how I was just talking about how you can make your life easier? Well, this is about the time when I realized that I'm gonna have to paint everything on the other side of that black line white. So this was not my best idea. This one, I painted everything till about my elbow in white because I was going to be going over some other parts in gray, and also because I know me and I'm not going to hold my arm still that long. So I just went over with the white paint. Brush was taking too long, and it wasn't as, it was coming out a little more streaky than I wanted it to be. So I wound up switching to a sponge in about an hour or so. And then once I did most of everything on that side, and the rest of my chest, I took a little break to let everything dry, and I started bothering my boyfriend, because that's what I do. Now, a couple things when it comes to doing more detail work, like any kind of ties. You want to make sure that when you're drawing them, you draw them kind of one at a time, so that way you can make sure that it's actually being connected to something. So you don't want to have like one part of your string connected to absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Because then that's going to kind of shatter the illusion, and that's kind of not what we're going for. So definitely when it comes to tying strings, you want to do that. As far as any of the armor pieces or whatever, different characters are most likely going to have a different body type to you, so you definitely want to keep that in mind, that you might have to make something larger or smaller depending on your body shape and how much room you have. You know, I have a pretty wide chest, so, and apparently every female character and everything has a way smaller chest than I do, so kind of have to adjust that. And same thing when I do the armor plates on the side of her arms, you're probably gonna have to adjust that as far as, you know, how far down your arm you need to go. You might need to make some of the individual plates a little bit bigger, just because if you want to keep with the same number, you know, if your arm's longer, obviously you're gonna need a few more. And just things like that. Now, as far as some of the sketch lines went, those I used in place of doing like any full-on shading or highlighting instead of blocking out color, because this is going to be more of a manga type of style. So basically for this, if you want something to have a darker shadow, you would do more closely knit together kind of sketch lines. And for anything that's going to be a little bit lighter, you're going to spread them apart, if that makes any sense. One thing you want to kind of keep in mind is where your light source is coming from. I'm obviously just in my room, whatever, just doing this. So if you're doing this for a specific photo shoot or anything like that, you really want to keep in mind where your light source is going to be coming from as far as the picture that you're going to take, because that's where you're going to be putting all of your highlights and shadows, basically. You want to kind of follow with that. And this goes with any, you know, whether it's a manga inspired or if it's a comic or a graphic novel or even just a drawing. You always want to keep in mind where your light source is coming from, whether you're doing a recreation or if you're doing an original character. That's really what's gonna kind of bring everything together and make it look a lot more realistic, even if it's something that's, you know, not. So now for the body armor part, I had a little issue with this, I'm not gonna lie. Basically what you want to do when it comes to the actual armor, there's a part that's supposed to dip in the way I drew it, it kind of looks like it's just a band going across all of the armor plate pieces. It's not supposed to be. One tip when it comes to drawing something with more of an kind of inverted, or not inverted, but more of a kind of inwardly curving shape, is to give your lines a little bit of a curve so that way it looks like it. Obviously I didn't think of that when I was actually doing this. It was late, I was tired. Apparently I can't body paint at a normal hour. It was like almost midnight at this point. So looking back at it now that I'm doing this editing, I realized I could have just done that and it would have had the same effect that I wanted it to. So hopefully that will help you guys out. And again, with anything that you want to have shadow, you're going to do more sketch lines basically. Anything that you want to seem a little bit lighter or not as shadowy basically, you want to draw less and have them a little more spread apart. And then one thing I didn't mention for the armor pieces, I did have them not really overlapping but kind of giving each other some room, so it kind of looks like they were moved around, not so much like they were just placed there. That's just me. I did leave my arm unpainted though, like from elbow down, because that's gonna be something else and I needed to wait for it to dry. So for this part, I literally just painted my hand gray. There's nothing really complicated about that. One thing I did do later on is I went back and I drew some more sketch lines to kind of imitate like raised leather, something like that. But yeah, this is probably the easiest part of this whole thing. But aside from that, all I really did after this was draw on the belt that was holding on the armor and a few lines to show that her undershirt was a little bit wrinkled, and that's it. But for anybody who made it this far and is wondering why I look so like sad and or angry, that's because I don't have my glasses on and I can't see very far without them, and yeah. That should explain that. But yeah, this is the finished look, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this long, I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't watched Berserk and you don't get queasy very easily, I would highly recommend it. It is pretty dark though, so just keep that in mind. But with that said, if you guys like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to see what comes out of my channel next, and let me know in the comments what your favorite like mangas, animes, cartoons are, and maybe I'll do a video on it. You never know. But I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye.